and Mali of the decision to quit the bloc. ECOWAS protocol provides that withdrawal takes up to 1 year to be completed, and the 15-nation bloc was formed in 1975 to promote economic integration in member states. The regional body has struggled in recent years to reverse rampant coups in the West African sub-region, where citizens have been agitating for economic stability. Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali are accusing the regional body of failing to support their fight against terrorism and insecurity, and the imposition of sanctions they term illegal, illegitimate, inhumane, and irresponsible. But ECOWAS says the three countries remain important members of the community, and it remains committed to finding negotiable solutions to the political impasse they are currently facing. TVC News Foreign Affairs correspondent looks at the current situation and issues surrounding it.
The military-led government of Niger announced on its national television a joint decision with Mali and Burkina Faso to pull out of ECOWAS. It may not come as a surprise to many that these three French-speaking West African countries have decided to pull out of the regional body. The three countries have continued the alliance of Sahel states, including signing a joint pact to help one another against external aggression. This is from fear of ECOWAS threats to use military force where necessary. The regional body and indeed other international organizations have continued to condemn the disruption of democracy in these countries with stiff sanctions. The sanctions have taken a toll on not just the economy of their countries, but also their living conditions. Financial aid from countries like the United States have been halted, with their assets in ECOWAS frozen. School children in Niger, for example, have not been able to attend classes, and electricity from Nigeria has been cut, putting about 70% of Niger in darkness. All these pressures, including diplomatic negotiation, is to ensure a return to democracy. This decision by Niger may not be unconnected to the inability of the ECOWAS Presidential Task Force team to meet up with a scheduled meeting in Niamey on the 25th of January. A communique from the ECOWAS Commission says the team could not travel due to technical issues on the chartered aircraft. Though the junta spokesman says the decision to sever ties with ECOWAS was due to the inability of the regional body to help in the fight against terrorism and insecurity.
En effet, l'organisation n'a pas apporté assistance à nos États dans le cadre de notre lutte existentielle contre le terrorisme et l'insécurité. Face à cette situation qui perdure, leurs excellences le capitaine Ibrahim Traoré, le colonel Assimi Goïta et le général de brigade Abdourahmane Tchani, respectivement chef d'État du Burkina Faso, de la République du Mali et de la République du Niger, prenant toutes leurs responsabilités devant l'histoire et répondant aux attentes, préoccupations et aspirations de leur population, décident en toute souveraineté du retrait sans délai du Burkina Faso, du Mali et du Niger de la communauté économique des États de l'Afrique de l'Ouest.
ECOWAS founding fathers set up the regional body on the 28th of May 1975 to achieve economic integration. The military takeover in 4 of the 15 member states has been regarded by many as a setback for the region. The pullout of these countries could further affect the aim of the regional body in meeting free movement and integration ECOWAS was set up to achieve. It is important to note that Article 91 of the revised ECOWAS Treaty of 1993 says, any member wishing to withdraw from the community shall give to the Executive Secretary 1 year notice in writing, who shall inform the member state thereof. At the expiration of this period, if such notice is not withdrawn, such a state shall cease to be a member of the community. Considering the current suspended state of these three Sahel countries and the non-fulfillment of their financial responsibilities and other obligations to the regional body since their suspension, it is not clear if they have a right to withdraw from the regional body. The only Arab-speaking member of the body, Mauritania, that pulled out in year 2000 followed this procedure laid out in the treaty. 4 countries are currently under suspension by ECOWAS. They are Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. As the world awaits the next line of action from ECOWAS, especially ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, it is important to note that this decision or this next line of action will to a very large extent determine the strength, capacity and sustainability of the regional bloc. Muya Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
I'm joined now by Professor of International Relations, who's also going to help us take an in-depth look into this development as to what's happening with these three countries. Professor David Awurawo, thank you so much for joining us on the program this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed. So these three countries seem to have made a strong allegation that ECOWAS has drifted from the ideals of its founding fathers and the spirit of Pan-Africanism. They are all founding members of, the regional bloc that was formed in 1975. So some say they should have an idea of what the founding ideals are. Do you agree?
I don't agree with them. ECOWAS has not in any way drifted from the ideas of the founding fathers of the regional body. The major objective of ECOWAS is to promote cooperation, integration, and development of the sub-region. And one way to achieve that is by promoting political stability and good governance in West Africa. There is a protocol adopted in December 2001 by ECOWAS members, the Protocol on Good Governance and Democracy. And that protocol is very clear about inclusive political arrangements across West Africa in West African states, democracy, good governance, and rejection of illegal overthrow of government, in West Africa. They are aware of this. These leaders are aware of this. So what they did contravened that protocol of 2001. And in fact, the ideas of ECOWAS itself, both the initial treaty of 75 and the revised treaty of 1993. So those comments, those claims that ECOWAS has drifted from the ideas of the founding fathers, those claims are not true. Rather, they are the ones who have drifted from the objectives of ECOWAS to promote good governance, political stability, and democracy in West Africa. So what they have said is not true, and they are totally disagree with it.
But what do you make of the claim that ECOWAS is under foreign influence? Because when you take a look at many of the uprisings that we have recorded in recent years, it's been about the claim of a neo-colonial rule on the part of France. And many of these dictators now say that these coups are a new phase of decolonizing Africa.
Well, there is some logic in that because the political leaders, unfortunately, didn't pull away or haven't pulled away enough from the colonial masters over time, especially those former French colonies in West Africa. So there is some truth in that. But unfortunately, these countries that are pulled out or trying to pull out of the control of France are jumping into the warm embrace of Russia. Just a few days ago, 25,000 tons of wheat was given by Russia to Mali, and they are all overjoyed over that. And the Wagner Group operates in Mali and some of these countries as well. So it is not a clean break from new colonial control of these countries. So the claim again that, is to free Africa from, or free their respective countries from new colonial domination is not entirely correct. But they are right in saying that the civilian leaders, many of them, majority of them across West Africa, and indeed across Africa, haven't pulled out enough from the stranglehold of the control of the former colonial masters, which is in itself not correct because it has led to continued exploitation and, of course, new colonial control of different African states. So in that, they are partly right.
But how strong would you say the regional bloc has been in the past almost 5 decades? Because despite the suspension from the bloc, the sanctions, negotiations, and even threats of military intervention, the military leaders have not only called the regional blocs bluff, they've now left ECOWAS and saying they can do without ECOWAS.
Well, ECOWAS hasn't achieved as much as expected. It hasn't fulfilled its objectives to the level that the founding fathers, envisioned, and that, of course, those of us today too would like. But it has made some achievements here and there in promoting cooperation across the sub-region, and by implication, enhancing development, in West Africa. The problems of ECOWAS are similar to those of other international organizations, even including the United Nations. That is that the member states hold on to their sovereignty, and when they choose to, go contrary to the provisions of the treaties that establish those organizations, they are almost emasculated. They are ineffectual to implement and force those countries to do what they signed up to. So it is not a problem unique to ECOWAS. It's a problem that runs across all international organizations. Having said that, ECOWAS could do a lot better. But at the end of the day, these countries are worse off. ECOWAS is not as affected as these countries. They are already very poor countries. All of them are among the 12 poorest countries in the world. Niger, Burkina Faso, these are countries that up to a quarter of their children from age 0 to 5 are malnourished. Millions of them are facing famine. Leaving ECOWAS does not advance their cause in any way. The countries that are left in ECOWAS are the strong ones, the more stable ones, the more prosperous ones. So I just, I sympathize, I feel very pity for the Burkinabes, the Malians, and the Nigerians, because at the end of the day, the ordinary citizens of these countries are the ones that will bear the brunt.
Indeed.
It is not a well thought out position, and it's a tragedy for, ECOWAS, and even more for these countries that are pulled out of it.
Prof, we understand that according to ECOWAS treaty, member states wishing to withdraw needs to give a year notice in advance and then continue to abide by, the regional bloc's provisions during that year. We'll wait to see how that plays out for these three countries. But if you consider how ECOWAS responded to Sunday's announcement, it seemed to be a more diplomatic response. It says the three countries are important members of the community and that the bloc remains committed to finding a negotiated solution to the political impasse. Is that feasible?
I'm very happy that ECOWAS responded the way it did. ECOWAS doesn't want them to go. It's not in the interest of ECOWAS. It's also not in the interest of these countries. ECOWAS members also know that the ordinary citizens of these countries will suffer a lot from this decision that is not well thought out. So I'm happy that ECOWAS still leaves room for these countries to, not to serve the notice. And if they do serve the notice before 1 year, to have a change of mind and decide to stay. If they stay, it's in ECOWAS's interest. It's also in the interest of these countries. So what ECOWAS has done is right. It has it has left the room open for these countries to have a change of mind. I would hope they do so, because if they do so, it will be in the interest of ECOWAS, and also, even more so, in their interest.
Professor David Awurawo is a professor of international relations and strategic studies. Thank you so much for talking to us on the news this hour.
It's my pleasure.
We're back with more stories from around the world after this break.